You're watching Business Day TV. I am Nontobeko Kumete, currently at the Inaugural National Transport Conference, where over the next 3 days, key stakeholders across government, industry and the public transport sector come together to shape the future of mobility in South Africa.
Together with our continental partners, we are pursuing the vision of bringing African cities closer together and making travel between them even more cheaper as well as easier.
This conference, it is driving a whole lot of inclusivity, economic growth within the transport sector. From your perspective, what are some of the immediate quick wins that you find within this sector that will result to visible, tangible results by the end of 2026?
Well, we are guided, of course, by our 6 main priorities that relate to improving the number of million tons of freight that is on our railroads, the number of passenger journeys, aviation journeys, carriage of aviation freight, and of course the important issue of road safety, as well as the efficiency of our ports. And what we understand is that while government and the 20 transport entities that fall under our portfolio are an integral part of improving the transport ecosystem, what we also understand is that there are a whole wealth of private players, both large and small. There's a big civil society that is involved in this sector. And we believe that if we bring everybody closer together, and we all work together on some of the objectives, we're likely to get better outcomes for the economy, for boosting job creation, and of course for inclusive growth.
You know, there's a lot of talk on private participation, PPPs, and there might just be concerns, from local transport businesses or local freight businesses as well in terms of costs. What is your perspective around that?
Well, I think first of all, that's why we want the transport infrastructure to remain in the custody of the state, because we do believe that's very important for making sure that you have an integrated system. I think that we are concerned about cost, and we do believe that if you have a number of different operators, there's likely to be a degree of competition that will drive down cost. I think that monopoly systems tend to increase costs, whereas if there are competitors, it tends to drive down cost. What we know is that rail at the moment, particularly in the general freight sector, is not competing well with road transport. And obviously we do need to make it much more affordable and efficient if we want to achieve our goal of switching a lot of road freight onto rail.
What are some of the key priorities that the RSR is bringing forth at today's National Transport Conference?
Thank you. Hi, Nontobeko and the viewers. From the perspective of the Railway Safety Regulator, the main priorities we're bringing here is more like sensitize the industry on what could it mean from the safety point of view. Because our role as a railway safety regulator is to ensure that we protect the lives of the people, zero injuries, and also no impact, negative impact to the environment, and protection of our assets that are very key for the country. So that's our main role. So we're here to participate as a railway safety regulator in this national transport conference, and we would like to actively contribute to the discussion and bring about what are the other challenges that could come about with the fact that you are undergoing open access, you are bringing a number of operators onto the network, and how do we ensure that as a railway safety regulator we drive the management of those risks and safety hazards so that the recovery of rail is achieved in a most safe manner.
Just from a Transnet perspective, what are you aiming to achieve from this year's conference?
The theme here is more about empowering people with knowledge about what's happening in the South African transport industry. It's more the the Department of Transport communicating with all of its ecosystem and ensuring that information is shared between the different parties, and that people that either current players or even new players, especially for new players that want to get into this whole ecosystem, know what to do and know who to speak to and what are the issues that are being dealt with, whether it's road, rail, shipping. It's giving that enough information for people to then interface with the Department of Transport and all of its ecosystem.
The National Transport Conference has set a national target of 250 million tons of freight by 2030. I believe that Transnet has moved 161 million of that in the year of 2024, 2025. What operational targets or milestones will need to be targeted in order to meet that missing gap?
Every year, we move the target towards the 250. We obviously have a lot of work that we need to do to fix our network, to get all of the ecosystem elements to work for us to achieve higher volumes. So last year or last financial year was 160 plus. And this year we're getting closer to 170, maybe next year maybe 180. So we'll be moving it up a notch every year as we fix the general system that delivers that volume. In addition to what we're doing internally as Transnet, as you know, we've already now opened up the network for 11 other train operators to add capacity to achieve that. So if you combine then the work that Transnet is doing, in addition to what the private sector are going to do, that's how we would be achieving the 250 million tons capacity by 2030. I know the minister said 2029, which is the target, official target date, but I'm saying by 2030, at least you'll have the capacity.
Can you please just share with us how the Gautrain's long-term strategy aligns with the emerging priorities set here at the National Transport Conference?
So the emerging priorities that have been set here by the National Transport Conference are important, but yet at the same time they do not exist in a vacuum. So when you look at our plan as Gauteng as a whole, which is called the Integrated Transport Master Plan for the 25 years, we affectionately refer to it as Access Gauteng 2050, which means we want to realize our goals in full progressively all the way to 2050. What it does then says, well, it places rail at the center of transport. And similarly, National has done the same thing. We are clear about the fact that there is no other way of doing this without having rail being at the center of transport and also of public transport in itself. And what it does then says we have a big role to play in the rail renaissance, but in transport renaissance as a whole in the whole of this country. And as I spoke yesterday in one of the panels, I said a country that does not have a proper working rail system will not prosper economically. Our plan has always remained that a new public-private partner will be found that will then help us to continue with the process of managing the system. The separation of duties in itself has always worked well for us. We do not have the challenge of other systems where you are an owner-operator. When you're an owner-operator, you cannot lay the blame at anybody's door when some things don't work out well. And we believe that we should continue with that strategy. It is an important fact that needs to be known, that after 19 and a half years, the system in itself comes back to government unencumbered, which means, and we have to clarify this, the MEC of Finance was simply clearing the fact that the system would be paid off in full, and therefore will become fully part of the asset register of government. The operations and the manner in which we go forward with it is a completely different thing from what he said. And obviously the comments have been taken out of context, and we ended up having to explain a whole lot of things. Here's an important fact. The system has always been owned by government since 2012. All we're doing as of next week Friday, which we are counting down to, is we're clearing the debt that had burdened the system over a period of time, which then allows us to then be able to spend money on improving other services and giving more to our commuters than we did before.
What is Botswana's priority or main objectives for this year's conference?
First of all, we want to announce our presence. Our presence, I mean, in terms of development of corridors, trade corridors, speak of rail, road, aviation. So that is number one. The purpose is for us to announce that we are here and we want to be noticed as a country that is in a trajectory to become a logistics hub. So that is not the first thing. The second thing is also to come and get investors to focus into Botswana. We are currently looking into developing of rail corridors. We have the Mosetseka Zungula Livingston that links us to Zambia. We have Mama Bulele Palale, it links us to South Africa, and then we have the Trans-Kalahari, it also links us to Namibia. But these are the corridors that we feel like in terms of regional integration, they will actually accelerate the economic growth of the region. We are going to be siblings forever. I mean, we can't avoid it. And I think the best thing to do is, to nurture this relationship further. And then the other thing is, South Africa's success cannot be divorced from Botswana as well. We have a very important role or critical role to its success. I'll give you an example. Botswana is geographically located. It's in the center of the SADC region. So if you are going to develop any corridor that links South Africa with the likes of Congo, Tanzania, that track has to pass through Botswana. That train has to pass through Botswana. Even the airplane also has to pass in our skies. So we need to harmonize, have good relationship, bilateral agreements, MOUs in place so that it becomes a better economy for all of us. And also, we are in pursuit of this one-stop border post. In Botswana also, we are working on digitizing the whole government system. So it would be nice to have a non-stop border post at all. So this is the direction we are heading.
Can you just please share some of the priorities highlighted by Santaco when it comes to this year's National Transport Conference? What are they?
So Santaco's priorities were first looking at the socio-economic reality of the taxi industry. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, our operators have been working at a loss to a great extent. A lot of them, obviously business is no longer the same. You've got many other opportunities that people have of public transport, be it e-hailing, but other people are also working from home. So the demand for our business has gone down quite a bit. So we had to speak quite strongly about issues of funding models for the taxi industry. In the past, the taxi industry has been continuously asking government to consider introducing a subsidy model that will benefit the taxi industry in the same way that they do with rail, as well as those that are driving bigger buses. But we're also looking at the issue of formalization. At the back of the 2020 National Taxi Lokotla, the taxi industry did commit there to say we're going to corporatize our associations into businesses so that we can start to pay tax in accordance with the regime that goes in accordance with our business model, and moving from operating as sole proprietors who would submit for tax in the form of income tax. And we were looking at issues of that. So we had to really call for this urgency around issues of subsidization of the industry, de-risking of the industry. We are currently paying hefty amounts of money on a monthly basis for single vehicles, and we believe government has got a role in that regard to speak to the OEMs and the financiers to see to it that the industry gets some cushioning in that particular regard. We've been wanting to also be proactive in terms of risks. Again, I spoke about the issue of safety, to say we're now also introducing breathalyzers into our vehicles, to say, and the breathalyzers work in that they get attached to the starting wiring of the vehicle. So before a driver is able to commence with the trip, they would have to blow into the breathalyzer. If there is an alcoholic percentage in that surpasses the legal limit, then the vehicle is not going to start. We're starting to install those technologies, but of all these sort of innovations that we're bringing in, inclusive of usage of tracking devices and things of that sort, a big part of them require a financial support, and the taxi industry is currently working with many financial challenges. You have to pay your vehicle on a monthly basis. I've spoken to you about how the numbers are very high, hence we're talking about de-risking. But if we were to be subsidized, would be able to have these things streamlined, because then you're going to ask, but in which areas are these things happening? They're happening in pockets of the taxi industry. You'd remember that we're quite a big industry, very dynamic. They are happening at a scale that we are finding to be a bit slow, because there's just a challenge of finances to say, when you've got your money as an association or as an individual operator, what do you prioritize? Ensuring that there's efficiency, embracing of technology, but still being able to pay a monthly fee and pay your driver, and also be able to put food on your table. Hence, we were so keen on saying we're formalizing the industry, but please come through to us, de-risk the industry, and also help us with a subsidy so that we can start to streamline some of these methods that we want to bring in to formalize the industry.
Over the past few days, the National Transport Conference has brought together leaders, operators, and policymakers committed to shaping a more efficient, inclusive, and sustainable transport system. That's it from me, Nondobeko Kumete, bringing you all things business and innovation right here on Business Day TV.